To go when you are.
Good evening, everyone. This is Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Milford Inlands Wetland Commission. Welcome to the October 2nd, 2024 regular meeting of the agency. Lisa, please call the roll.
Daniel Bedecker.
Here.
Ranjit Bahav.
Aye.
Brian Black.
Here.
Jim Connors. Matthew Connors. Buddy Field.
Here.
Steve Munson.
Here.
Nick Ritchie.
Here.
Julie Valvo.
Here.
Brendan Magnan.
Here. Thank you, Lisa. Commissioner Field, please serve as designating alternate this evening.
Yes.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, as we continue to host remote meetings, the few statutory obligations we must follow according to the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Vermont's executive orders. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website and is being broadcast on YouTube. If any members of the agency would like to speak, please channel your questions and discussion points through me as chair. Once recognized, proceed. And at this time, I'd like to invite everybody to unmute themselves and join me by standing and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
The republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty for all.
Thank you, everyone. If everyone can go on mute unless recognized by me. At this time, I'd like to invite anybody from the public to speak on topics that are not otherwise in the agenda. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the agency? Anyone here from the public wishing to address the agency? Okay, going 3 times. Going the 3rd time. Mayor Rose, could you introduce D1, please?
Yes, this is old business item D1. It's IW 240055 Cascade Boulevard. It's a proposal by Cascade Milford LLC to construct an office warehouse and a caretaker house with construction grading and drainage within 100 feet of a wetland in the South Central Shoreline watershed. Agency walked the site on 9/4 before our last meeting. Second, we've got a guest. Sorry, multitasking.
Richard Connors.
We walked this site before our last meeting and requested the following information. A tree plan showing how trees will be removed in the area of disturbance, and a tree plan is in the revised plan set that was in the meeting documents. Answers to the city engineer's questions in his 822 memo. The city engineer reviewed the revised plans and found them satisfactory in his 9/30/24 memo. And a determination from the wetland scientist if there will be any adverse impacts on the wetlands and adjacent wetlands and watercourses due to the tree removal. The applicant's expert is here this evening to do that presentation. Mr. Chairman, we have Ron Wassmer from the Connecticut Civil Group, from the Matt Pop, professional wetland scientist and landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions, to answer the agency's questions this evening.
Thank you, Mary Rose, for that introduction and update. Mr. Wassmer, turning it over to you. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the record?
Good evening, Ronald Wassmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive. I think Mary Rose did a good job recapping what we've gone through so far. The city engineer has reviewed the plans and found them to be satisfactory. We've submitted the plan that shows existing trees. It's And then also with me this evening is Matt Pop. Matt drafted the landscaping plan that has some of the mitigation plantings, as well as a professional wetland scientist to assist in the application. So if there's no questions by the commission, then I'll turn it over to Matt. If you have any questions for me, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist from Environmental Land Solutions. I'm not sure we could get the landscaping plan up, or I could share my screen either. There we go. So just go over it again. We're proposing, we'll talk mainly about the left side with the wetland buffer. We got a number of shade trees, mainly oaks and red maples there. Again, mainly to provide shading of the asphalt, trying to keep the water temperature cool, to reduce thermal pollution. We have a number of shrubs below. There's a wall there below the wall. It's not that diverse, but mainly because we're just trying to get the species that the deer tend not to eat, the bayberry and the spice bush. They'll eat some of the other ones too, with the clethra, but try to keep them, again, healthy over the long term. Down the south, on the southern or the bottom part of the site, in the southeast, we have American holly that just provides some screening from the residential building to the southeast. Again, the hollies are good for, I think, wildlife habitat. They provide cover. Also, the deciduous trees we're proposing to also provide a good wildlife habitat. I did years ago work on the residential development to the south where they had box turtles on the site. Luckily for this project, we are having a wall that will act as a wildlife buffer along the wetland edge. It's very important for this site. Before any trees are cut, that like silt fence or a wildlife barrier be installed in the site walked to search for any box turtles, again, before the trees are cut. If there are any box turtles are found, they kind of get relocated to the low side, the wetland side of the silt fence. I think Ron had some notes on the plan. I know that I think, again, along the street, we have street trees, again, the larger growing trees for shade, oaks, mainly, and some shad, the smaller understory trees. In the back, there is probably room that we could, put in a few smaller sized tulip trees. I think tulip trees grow fairly quick. They get fairly large. They probably wouldn't be at the 3-inch caliber, just a little bit smaller, maybe like a 1.5 to 2-inch, and maybe we can get in another, 4 or 5 placed in between the trees that we're proposing now. That would provide a little bit of, I think, maybe a little bit more shading of the parking area, and then replacing some of those trees that we're removing from the wetland buffer. Let's see. I think that is kind of the landscaping plan. Quickly, we do have water quality measures. I think Ron reviewed those, I think, at the last meeting, just to, again, mostly it's important to keep the water temperature cool, to remove any sediments before entering the wetland. Again, in the kind of the level spreader area, we do have a number of herbaceous plants, mainly switchgrass and blue flag iris right in the center there. The deer tend not to eat those. Those two plants seem to do very well in those type of areas. I use them quite often, the blue flag iris and the switchgrass. I think that is it. If there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Pop.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the agency?
Mr. Chair, I read all the responses from the city engineer, and I think they've addressed everything. I think everything, we've looked at and questions we have from the site visit and previous meetings, I think they've addressed it all. And I have, I'm in favor of moving forward, approving the project.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Any questions for Mr. Pop? This is the first time you're presenting to us on this application.
Mhm.
In your expert opinion, if that map could go back, sorry, there was just an observation, along the wetlands, I guess it's on the left side, I'm not sure which direction that is.
Yep.
Is there any, in your expert opinion, is there any consideration to moving sort of the buffer zone away from the wetlands a little more and sort of encroaching more into the parking lot? Seems to me like there's this massive parking lot for a small building. I'm not trying to re-engineer the plan, but I guess I'm backwards way. I'm trying to ask the question, I guess, more directly. In your opinion, does any of the proposed modifications have an adverse impact on the wetlands?
Well, I think I'm gonna maybe let Ron answer if the parking lot could be reduced in size. I think he kind of did the layout for the vehicles that are using the site. I'm not sure how many people will be, working here if the number of parking spaces could be, reduced, at all. But again, the main thing is the water quality runoff from this project, just to cleanse that prior to being discharged into the wetlands. And again, I think this project with the wall acting as a wildlife buffer, I think that's makes it the wall is actually very desirable to have. And as long as there's silt fences up during construction, again, we do the wildlife sweeps. It probably would be no adverse impact to the wetlands. Again, we could add a couple more, I think, like the tulip trees, smaller size, maybe 1.5 inch, like I said, to 2 inch, just to provide a little bit more of a denser buffer.
Right.
Let's see.
Is there any reason you didn't include that on the plan, or is that something you considered?
So the spacing for the trees now, I have, let's see, they're probably spaced, 35 feet, maybe 3.5 parking spaces or so. That's kind of maybe standard or so. But, I guess maybe by the wetland area, if we could put in a few smaller ones. Again, we have the shrubs. Their shrubs could get shifted, field located, or field adjusted. But again, I think that maybe just down slope of the level spreader if there's no space. But it might be good just to have, maybe don't even show them on the plan, or just show them in the plant list and then just locate them in the field.
That's where I was trying to get at it. I mean,
Yep.
you sort of intimated it, but I sort of, on the sidewalk, it was sort of, the open question in my mind was, with the tree removals, the significant tree removals, leaning on an expert like you, I just need to get comfortable with the fact that area along the wetlands is, has the right canopy.
Yep.
That it's not going to have any long-term adverse impact to the nearby water courses.
Yeah, I think that buffer would be, got the right species. Again, a lot of times I see the right species, but if there's deer around, the deer eat the plants, especially the shrubs. But I think these plants are, again, deer resistant, I would say, or deer tolerant. Again, the plants are fairly dense. But again, we could add a few more, like I said, tulip trees. And I think if we do that, if during construction, if the erosion controls are maintained, again, it's important to maintain that. Again, we put in the wall right off the start, one of the first things, just to keep any accidents from happening from vehicles going into the wetland buffer. There should be no adverse impact to this wetland system. Again, get the wall built early on. I think that was it.
Any advantage at all to expanding that buffer zone into the parking lot, or is that just not of any value?
Maybe you're gonna have Ron address that if that could be shifted at all.
Sure.
Because he did the kind of the layout for the vehicles using the site.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. So the parking that we provided is generally conforming with the zoning requirements. This is being used for light manufacturing warehousing. The owner of this property has a fencing business as well as a sign. They install signs along the highway. So they do bring smaller trucks, box trucks onto the site, or they will be frequently. So the big open area of the parking lot is to allow the trucks to come in and maneuver because they have a longer wheelbase than an automobile. So the parking is more for automobiles, but the open area is more for truck turning to get to the overhead doors behind the other building.
Excuse me.
I will make a comment about some of the existing trees. If you notice on the tree plan that we surveyed all the existing trees, and so we're trying to maintain. There's several large trees right along the wetlands, so we're not removing them. And then in particular, the comment arose as soon as we walked into the site from Cascade Boulevard. And so there was a 24-inch oak there. We did a minor modification to the retaining wall to ensure that oak would stay. It's just below those two large storm drainage pipes. The retaining wall there is not very tall, and there's no need to do any grading on the lower side of the wall, which is where the tree is. So we should have minimal impact to that particular tree. The bulk of the other trees that are being removed are beech trees. You'll notice a lot of beech trees, which are close to dead now. And then, a fair number of them are in the outside of the general buffer of the wetlands.
A lot of the trees too are, they're 14, 16, 8 inches in size, within the parking lot area. That looks like there's a 24-inch maple, two of them. So they're not extremely large. When I was out there, you can kind of see they're, I would say maybe a mid canopy size trees. So they're not 36 inches or so. And again, the beech trees, unfortunately, I think they're in a few years they're going to be gone.
Okay. Yeah, you
answered
my questions. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Narrows, anything additional that you think we should consider?
No, I think the agency's covered the, one of the things the agency typically does is if we were to approve it, they would have a construction bond. And for plantings of this magnitude and needing extra care with the turtles, they would require mitigation monitoring for a period of time. We've gone anywhere between 3 and 5 years to make sure the plants survive and aren't overtaken by invasives and that they do well. But also because of the proximity to the wetland and the sensitive resource, I would recommend weekly or after significant rain event visits by an environmental monitor to make sure that the erosion controls are up and that everything's stable.
Thank you, Mary Rose. What would you recommend for the length of the bond? Would you say 5 years or 3?
Matt, I would defer to you, but I think
Yeah. Normally, it's, I would say 3 years. If it was like a violation, then I think a lot of agencies push it to 5 years, but typically it's 3 years.
And that's kind of what we've done. We've had
Mm.
longer monitoring periods when there's been a violation because we're usually at that point combating a lot of invasives.
Yep, a lot of times too, some agencies have, 80% survival rate, just in case, so if one tree dies out of, 15 or 20, does it still kind of meet the intent? So I don't know if you want to add, 90% survival rate. So,
Okay, sounds good.
Actually, what we've asked for in the past is we've asked the environmental scientist on the site to give us a rubric for success for the plan you've designed. What's the success rate of that plan?
okay.
Is it 80% coverage of grass, 90% survival of trees? What's that look like?
Mhm.
And we have you submit that before the permit's taken out.
The only other modification I think I would make, if you go back to your plan, Ron, just
This one?
yeah, just the wall that wraps around the site, goes from the one building, attaches to the one building and wraps all the way around the parking. And then when it gets to the building up near the top of the sheet, there's a little bit of a gap. So I'm not sure if that could connect to the building. It just completes that wildlife, buffer or barrier,
Yeah,
right?
sure. That wouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah, just to connect it. And then it's, they needed steps, that's fine too. They can step up and down, and then it just makes makes the building act as a barrier.
Okay, so given the deliberation, is there someone that would like to make a motion? I agree with Mr. Field's sentiments. I think this is a very comprehensive review and prepared to support approving it with the various conditions that we have in our standard motions.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
What we've just discussed. Sorry.
Matt, what was the number of tulip trees?
Let me just hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would say 5. You probably would go in between the trees. Yeah. And there'd probably be like again, tulips a little bit tougher to get, especially like a 3-inch caliber. So if they were like 1.5 inches or so, I think that'd be fun. And they grow quick.
So if someone wants to make a motion from the agency, we'll have Mary Rose read the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the plan.
And I second it.
We have a motion second. I'm sorry, Mr. Munson, did you have a question before we entertain the motion? You raised your hand just as Jim spoke, sorry.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. In the section that we're looking at potentially doing for the mitigation bond, there is the possibility if the conditions weren't met, that we would have an additional 2 years or until the site meets the design.
Mhm.
Mary Rose?
That's typically the mitigation motion
Okay.
for mitigation. That's typically the condition. I think
Okay.
the chair's gonna have me read the whole motion in a second.
Okay.
You have Mary Rose, and she has some additional edits that she's been taking notes on, if that's okay, Mr. Munson.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Mary Rose, if you don't mind reading the motion, and then we could discuss it.
Alrighty, hold on a second. After duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IW 240055, Zero Cascade Boulevard, based on the plans entitled Site Plan Special Exception, Zero Cascade Boulevard, Milford, Connecticut, by CT Civil Group, 11 sheets dated 7/1/24, revised 9/26/24, and Zero Cascade Boulevard, Milford, Connecticut, landscape plan by Environmental Land Solutions, one sheet dated 5/3/24, revised 6/26/24. The information in the file and presented this evening for the following reasons. This action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristics of the adjacent wetlands and watercourses, with conditions including the permittee must submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit. Soil erosion and sediment controls as outlined in the plans and in the Connecticut DEP 2024 erosion sedimentation control guidelines must be installed and maintained on the site until the property is stabilized. Wetland notification to be placed on the as-built and on the property deed to give notification to the property owners that permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. Documentation to be submitted to the MIWA office prior to bond release. Compliance with the city engineer's requirements for stormwater. Stormwater treatment must be installed as approved on the plans unless any changes are approved in writing prior to making that change. Site monitoring reports by the environmental professional to be submitted to MIWA office weekly and within 48 hours of a significant precipitation event. Issues noted in the reports to be addressed within 24 hours of the inspection. Increase of plantings to increase the plantings by 5 tulip trees with a 1.5-inch caliper minimum. Close the gap on the north side of site between the wildlife wall and the caretaker's house. A permit condition bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA. Sedimentation, erosion controls, border plantings, wetland boundary markers, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contours and locating all site structures. A mitigation monitoring bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA prior to site disturbance for mitigation plantings and a minimum of 3 years of mitigation monitoring by a professional wetland scientist, with reports to the MIWA twice a year for a minimum of 3 years. Report to include the status of the site and any recommended corrective actions or amendments to the mitigation plan for best stabilization of the site. If there is recommended corrective action, there must be an inspection report by the professional wetland scientist within a week of the corrective action being taken. If the site has not met the criteria as outlined in the plan, or at the end of 3 years, this bond may be held for an additional 3 years, or until such time as the site meets the design criteria, whichever is later, with reports continuing twice a year to confirm status. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent of the approval prior to bonds being released. And the permit is issued 10/2/24 and expires 10/2/28 unless otherwise provided by statute.
Thank you, Mary Rose, for reading the motion. Mary Rose, just a question. I think you said earlier there was another consideration around if there's a major storm event and there's disruption, that be monitored and acted on. Is that kind of covered as you've already laid out, or is that something we need to add?
That can be in the criteria of the monitoring report, but if Mr. Connors wants to amend his motion, I can add monitoring within
Sure, go ahead.
monitoring within 48 hours of a significant rain event. And the reason behind this is to ensure that if any erosion controls have gone down in the event, that the site's fixed quickly.
And Mr. Pop, if you can make sure that's part of the success criteria, just to be sure, that just kind of a fine comment there. Because you've heard that's important to us. So, okay, any other? So let's formalize the amendment. Do we have a second on the amendment to the main motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a quick suggestion in the motion. So the motion mentions significant rain event, but looking at the recent information, all the rain events seem to be significant, right? So I think we need to be able to assign some specific storm intensity to that, specific rain event. So 5-year storm, 10-year storm, 100-year storm. Then it will be more effective instead of just saying significant rain event.
That's a good idea. So let's add that clarification. What do you recommend? Is there a specific threshold that you would suggest we specify?
Yeah, so generally the storm sewer is like designed for 10 to 25-year event. So I think a 25-year storm could be, good threshold, or even we can go higher if needed. But I think 25-year could be, good basic number.
Okay, so we have a
Through Mr. Chair, and we may reach out to Mr. Pop for cooperation on this. That's typically because the events aren't always categorized. Typically what will happen is rain gauges in the area will be checked, and you're looking at, you're looking at 1/10 of an inch, you're looking at 1/2 an inch, you're looking at an inch of rain. Rain events in this area, according to our rain gauge, have been running, 1/2 an inch to 1.5 inches on just when we get rain, a regular rain event. Mr. Pop, what is your typical site monitoring criteria?
So something like this, I would say like in like 1.5 inches in a 24-hour period or so. The other thing, if Mary Rose just sent me an email or a text or anything, you need to get out there because it was extra windy, and it only rained out like 1/2 inch, but it was very windy. Some trees fell down. I can certainly get out there. But typically like 1.5 inches for 24 hours, which Ron, how much is a 1-year storm event? Is that like 5 inches or so in 24
2
hours?
inches, a 2-year storm is a few inches. So I think 1 inch to 1.5 inches is a good number to use. It's a common rain event.
Mhm.
But it's not a catastrophic rain event. We don't want to only visit the site during catastrophic storms, which a 25-year storm is a pretty significant storm. So I think either 1 to 1.5 inch would be a good frequency to go visit the site.
Thanks for your expertise, gentlemen. Okay, Mary Rose, if you want to maybe clarify the amendment, and then we'll vote on it.
Okay, the proposed amendment is to ensure that the professional wetland scientist is monitoring the site within 48 hours of a significant rain event, identified as 1.5 inches in a 24-hour period. And that would bring in, if there is a 25-year rain event, that would certainly have cause to visit the site.
Great. Thanks, Rajiv, for raising it for the team. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote, please, on the amendment to the main motion.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. The amendment carries. Any discussion on the main motion as amended? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Good luck with the project. Thanks for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project. Moving on to item D2. Mary Rose, do you want to introduce this one, please?
Sure. This is IW 240056 at 674 Naugatuck Avenue, and we received a letter this afternoon from Mr. Wassmer that the applicant is withdrawing his application at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Rose. So no further action required for us.
No further action required.
Cool. Thank you. Item E1, please. A reading twist on this one.
All right, this is a new one. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. The plans got a little bigger than expected. All right. This is new business. It's item E1. It's IW 240072 214 North Street. This is a proposal by Nick Vicino of CN LLC for construction of a six units in two buildings on the property at 214 North Street. The Wepawag River, an associated wetland, and a flood zone and a floodway are located on the rear of the site. Wetlands have been delineated by Steve Danzer, PhD, and were evaluated by David Lord, who is a certified soil scientist. Their reports and the plans are in the meeting documentation. Construction of the buildings, oops, there we go, is proposed within 40 feet of the inland wetland line and about 53 feet from the Wepawag River. There will be work and excavation for the gas line behind the buildings with a little bit of grading. The plans show grade changes as spot elevations because the top of the site near the road is fairly flat, and then it goes off towards the river. The applicant is proposing a permeable paver block system for stormwater pretreatment and compliance with MS4, including a grass swale along the southern side of the site for dissipation of the water. There is an existing Connecticut DOT drainage easement along the northern portion of the site with an 18-inch RCP that discharges over here at the Wepawag River. Silt fencing is shown about 7 feet from the wetland line at the end of the grass swale on the south side of the property. And as you move up along this building, it's 22 to 35 feet from the building line. And as you get up here, it's about 42 to 50 feet from the wetland line behind the north building.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not seeing anything that you're presenting.
It's not sharing. Sorry about that. How about now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Been a whole lot more interesting if you had a plan in front of you. There we are. All right. Again, this is the North Street, and this is the Wepawag River with the associated wetlands. The hatched area is a FEMA flood zone. This line here is the proposed silt fence line. These are the two buildings. You've got permeable pavers for stormwater mitigation in front of the site with a grass swale, silt fencing going up and getting further from the wetland as we move north on the site. Mr. Chairman, tonight we have Bob Weway of Codaspodian Associates to do a presentation for you. Bob had said he may have some video trouble, so I know he's on. I just don't think we don't have visual.
Thank you.
I think you have audio, right, Mary Rose?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Would you have the ability to share screen?
I do, Bob, but right now the chair has the floor.
Sorry, Mr. Weway. I'm now handing the floor to you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The floor is yours to present.
Which plan would you like up, Bob?
Would I be able to share my screen?
Oh, sure. That's even better. Try that now.
It says it's disabled.
No, try it now. There you go.
Okay. Okay, so good evening. My name is Robert Weway. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut and principal with the firm of Codispoti and Associates, with offices located at 263 Boston Post Road in Orange, Connecticut. And we're here tonight on behalf of the owner, CN LLC, of which Nick Vicino is a principal. What we're looking at right now is the sheet SV, which is the survey map. And I'm just basically giving you a blow-up of the site location. So what you can see from the site is we're basically wedged in on North Street between the Boston Post Road and the I-95 corridor up through here. So we're pretty much right in the middle of that. And we're bounded on the east by North Street, the west by the Wetland River, and residential properties to the north and south. The site is currently known as 214 North Street. It was originally part of a free split of 210 with North Street, which took place a couple of years ago. And the site is 0.46 acres in size. And we'll just take a blow up of the area here. And what you can see here is that we're 0.46 on the acreage through there. As Mary Rose pointed out, there's an existing foundation located up in this general area with an asphalt driveway, and then there was an additional extension of the barn or garage back in this area, which was demolished quite some time ago in conjunction with the barn. We have the existing drainage easement, which picks up runoff from North Street and is piped directly into the Wetland River up and through this area here. And that existing easement is to the state of Connecticut. The wetlands, as Mary Rose pointed out, were flagged by Stephen Danzer in November of 2022 with flag numbers 7 through 15. Being associated with the property. Wetland flag 7 is located down at the southern portion of the property, and wetland flag 15 is located just up to the north of the northerly property line. The wetlands that were in here consist of water, which would be the Wetland River, and we have the crosshatch on that, and then the pocket of wetlands that parallels that was basically identified as fluviquints by the soil scientist. The upland soils through this area here are identified as being Haven Urban Land Complex going through that area. The topography generally slopes from North Street to the Wetland River. Overall, there's about 6 feet in elevation relief, with the majority of the property being generally flattened through this area here. It does get a little bit steep as you get down towards the water's edge and the embankment leading up to the river. The entire site is located within a special flood hazard area with a 100-year flood elevation of approximately 38.2. So what you can see is that basically up along North Street, which is about elevation 5, so this whole area is under about 3 feet of water during a 100-year flood event. In conjunction with the FEMA mapping, there is also an additional special flood hazard area identified as the floodway zone, and basically it's depicted by this line right here, which pretty much cuts the site in half, so to speak, along that western boundary. So with that, the floodway has additional flood hazards due mainly to floodwater velocities, debris, and potential projectiles and erosion that would be associated with that 100-year flood event that takes place. Encroachments into this area are generally prohibited unless certification with supporting technical data by a registered professional engineer is provided, demonstrating through hydrologic and hydraulic analysis performed in accordance with standard engineering practices that encroachment shall not result in any increase in flood levels during the occurrence of the base flood discharge through that area. And what we're taking a look at next is basically the color rendering of the landscape plan, and this will basically highlight the proposed development. So we are currently proposing to have 2 buildings situated on the site with 3 units each in each building for a total of 6 units. Each unit will be a 2-bedroom townhouse. There will also be a total of 12 parking spaces for the project.
Bob?
Yep.
The colored rendering isn't showing.
It's not showing. Okay. Let's try this one. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just to go back and circle around again, we have the 2 proposed buildings, one here and one here. Each of these buildings will have 3 units consisting of 2-bedroom townhouses for a total of 6 units for the entire project. We've provided for a total of 12 parking spaces with interior parking on each of the buildings, one parking space for each unit, and then an additional 6 surface spaces on the outside for each particular unit there. We have the proposed parking and paved area in through here is going to be or will consist of permeable pavers, which will facilitate stormwater management for the project, which I'll get into in a little bit greater detail as we get into the plans. The proposed development will have a total of about 6,900 square feet of impervious surface consisting of the roof areas, the parking areas, as well as the associated sidewalks coming down through the project area. The proposed development has been primarily situated to be within the eastern portion of the property, allowing us to provide for a minimum of a 45.9, say 46 feet distance from the closest wetland point to the building proper. And that's for the southern building. The northern building, we're able to provide a much larger buffer up in that area, and that will be approximately 75 feet off the wetland line. In comparison to where the existing garage footprint is right now, it would come up to about here. The existing garage footprint is about 65 feet off the wetland system. So in essence, we were able to move this building an additional 10 feet further away from the wetlands. As you can see from the layout of the plan, we are not proposing any filling of wetlands for this particular project. This is in the Wet'suwet'en River watershed area, so there is a 150-foot upland review area. And as you can see, that based upon the plan, the entire site falls within that upland review area. Now, as part of the project, we did consider low-impact development to avoid, reduce, and manage the impacts from redevelopment of the site. And in the context of the stormwater management and LID, this is considered to be a redevelopment project because of the prior buildings and impervious surface areas that were associated with the sites. So with regards to the low-impact development, we looked at a number of features, the first one being to avoid impacts. And in conjunction with that, the pre-development site had a garage barn and paved driveway in disturbed areas. And the back edge of the former barn was approximately 38 feet from the wetlands in that area. The proposed most westerly building will be no closer than 46 feet to the wetlands, with a buffer being provided along the entire length of the wetlands up and through here, as well as helping to maximize the amount of open space in the rear portion of the site area. The Proposed layout will also provide for minimal grading with some minor cuts along the rear of the property in this general area here, beginning at elevation 33, and that's basically depicted by this line here as the limits of grading. So from between contour elevation 33 and the side or rear of the building, as the case may be, this will primarily be some minor cut situations in here, along with some minor filling for the parking areas as well as for the foundation pads and the buildings itself. All told, there will be approximately 127 yards of cut and 134 cubic yards of cut and 127 yards of fill. So in essence, the site is balanced. One of the other lid development features that we looked at was also to reduce the impacts of the development. And with respect to that, we provided for a low maintenance meadow mix to be implemented parallel to the wetland system and through here. And we've identified that on the plan as being a 10-foot no-mow strip, and that will be set up with a wetland seed mix. And we're also proposing to remove the invasives that have taken over the site within the last year or so. Prior to that, this was all basically lawn area, and it was mowed and maintained. And in the last year or so, it's been kind of left to go, and the vegetation has started to take over in those areas. And the last item that we looked at was management of impacts. And with that in mind, the porous paver system that's being proposed will provide for infiltration at the source from the parking, as well as providing for collection and storage of the roof runoff from the two proposed buildings. And let me get back to our plan set of documents, and what I'm going to refer to now is getting over to sheet number 2, which is our proposed grading and utility plan. And basically, the site will be serviced by all major utilities. We have access to public water, gas, as well as overhead electric to service the site, and sanitary sewers to be included. Now, because of the flood zone that we're in, the electric service is going to be proposed, or is proposed to be overhead, because it doesn't make sense to put any of the transformers that would typically be required within the flood zone and have those under 3 feet of water. So the electric is all being proposed to be overhead to the site. In conjunction with that, all of the air conditioning pads, which are shown on the drawings here, as well as the gas meters, they will all be located above the regulatory flood elevation of 38.2, going through that area. So the last item to deal with on the grading plan is the stormwater management plan, and that will be accomplished through a variety of structural BMPs, including water quality enhancements, detention, and infiltration. The design of these features is in accordance with the current Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual by the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection Agency, and also the general permit for the discharge of stormwater from small municipal separate storm sewer systems, also by the Connecticut DEEP. That's known as the MS4 program. So basically, we provided for the runoff or for the water quality volume in the porous paver system, and that is going to receive the runoff from the parking area as well as the rooftop area. And you can see from the detailed grading plan that all the leaders have been designed to collect the runoff from the roofs and direct them down to one or a number of yard drain systems, from which point the runoff will be distributed through a pipe system into a reservoir bed, which will be situated underneath the permeable pavers. Now, with the depth and size of the reservoir bed, in addition to providing water quality enhancements for the water quality volume. We're also able to provide enough detention storage in there to mitigate any increases in runoff from the 2 through 100-year rainfall events. So from a stormwater perspective, we feel that the plan has met all the requirements of the regulatory agencies on that. And we've also provided for a detailed soil erosion and sediment control plan for the project. And we basically have the silt fencing, which will be following that cut line at approximate elevation 33. We provided for construction entrance coming in off of North Street, as well as a stockpile area here and protection for all of our yard drain inlets coming in through that section. So bouncing back to the landscape plan for one last time. So we do have a number of plantings that we're going to be taking place in here. Jeff Gordon, who's a landscape architect from our company, came up with the detailed landscape plan. So there's a number of shrubs that will be planted within the wetlands in that 10-foot mow strip. It's intended to have the rear portion of the property maintained as a lawn area, just as it was previous to the development. And there will also be additional trees and shrubs provided along the rear portion of the property, as well as some trees being planted out in on the frontage along the North Street property. So this is meant to be a passive recreation area coming up and through the back of the units to allow the occupants of the units to have some places to enjoy some recreational areas going through that section. Now, David Lord also provide a wetlands functional and value assessment for the proposed project. And he basically looked at three primary functions that were identified, consisting of fish and shellfish habitat, sediment and shoreline stabilization, and wetland wildlife habitat. He also did a search of the natural diversity database, and it was indicated that the subject property is located within an area denoting the potential for state and/or federal listed plant and animal species. A subsequent inquiry of the NDDB by the applicant indicated that no populations of state endangered, threatened, or special concern species and no critical habitats have been documented within or in close proximity to the project site. And I believe that document was uploaded to the city site today, and I'm assuming, Mayor Rose, that you guys were able to receive that document?
We did, and it is in the meeting documents.
Okay. So basically, David Lord's summary and conclusion indicates that the identified functions of the wetlands will be preserved, and that there should not be any measurable adverse environmental impacts as a result of the proposed project. So based upon David Lord's environmental assessment, we believe that this project will not create any negative impacts to the wetlands or its resources. The plan provides for a reasonable use of the property while providing for the protection of the wetland system. So that's basically a quick overview of the project, and you know, if the commission has any questions, we'll certainly try to address or answer them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Opening up for questions for Mr. Weeway.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I have a quick question on the permeable blocks that are being proposed on the site. These blocks, although they tend to function very effectively in the beginning, over the period of time, they accumulate dust and they are very difficult to clean, and I guess essentially you have to vacuum them. So are the tenants or the occupants of those houses going to clean them? Because if you don't clean them, then the entire water is just going to sheet flow into the river.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. We have provided a detailed operation and maintenance plan for the project, and the maintenance requirements for the porous pavers are included in there. And typically there is, the vacuuming is probably the main part of helping to ensure that the pavers stay functional and not getting fully clogged up. But the pavers are an accepted stormwater management practice in the deep stormwater manual, and we've used these on a number of projects and found them to be successful in their implementation.
Yeah, Mr. Weaver, I think the last sentiment you mentioned is interesting. I mean, we're familiar with this design. I think the question I would have to Mary Rose is, given the importance of maintenance, there's a maintenance plan as noted by Mr. Weaver, but who's going to actually be responsible for this, given that this is a multi-tenant application?
Well, it's a multi-tenant. It's presently proposed to be under single ownership, and these will be rental units. So it would be the owner's responsibility, which in this case is Nick Vicino and CN LLC, for the implementation of that operations and maintenance plan.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Weaver. I'm sorry, Mr. What's your last name?
Vicino.
Yeah.
State your name for the record, and could you just kind of acknowledge that you understand the obligation that would bring as part of this application?
Yes, I'm Nicholas Vicino, CNLLC, and I was well briefed on the maintenance of the permeable paver system prior to them showing these on the plans. We plan on maintaining the system.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
For the record, Mr. Vicino. Sorry, Mr. Vicino, is there anything you would like to add to the record in addition to clarifying that question?
I don't believe at the moment, I don't know if you guys have any more questions for Bob, and then maybe that could add more to the record, but not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we probably do have any questions.
Sure.
Mary Rose.
Through you, Mr. Chair. If the agency wished, we can require that the maintenance program for the permeable pavers be added to the deed, so that should Mr. Vicino sell the property, the new property owner will be on notice. Can't necessarily make him do it until we realize that this isn't something that I can maintain and watch over or get reports on, but there needs to be the responsibility for the maintenance of those needs to pass from owner to owner to be sure that they have the maintenance manual and know how to do it.
Agreed.
And a second question for Mr. Weaver, if I can.
Yes.
Mr. Weaver, since the permeable pavers are being placed in the front of the site, and that's probably where most of the construction is going to happen, what's the plan for ensuring that the soils aren't over compacted and can't receive stormwater due to construction activities?
Yeah, we have a note on the grading plan for overburden to be placed in the area, which will help to protect the soils. But when that system goes down, there's going to be that system gets excavated down about 1.5 feet to establish the bottom of the reservoir bed. So between the existing grade and then the overburden that's placed in there, that should provide sufficient protection for the underlying soils. We did do a number of test holes in there along with infiltration tests, and as you would think, being adjacent to the river, the soils are a very sandy type soil with very good infiltration capacity.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for you.
Sure, and then Mr. Ritchie will have the floor after you.
I haven't seen it on the plan, but considering where it is, possibility of a fence there in the back, because unless I'm overlooking it, I didn't see it on the plan. We've done it to other sites where we do put a fence up in a site like this, because you do have tenants. I would strongly recommend either maybe suggest putting a fence along the FEMA line or maybe 25 feet away from the mow strip, which would probably be 35 feet off the wetlands line. I do have sites like these. I know it's like not to have fences, and I have fences and everything, and it helps. So,
Great suggestion.
Yeah, the issue that we have here is that because we have a floodway, and the floodway fencing is prohibited inside of the floodway.
A question through the chair. Can it be a split rail fence?
I don't think it can be. Again, we could do a little bit of research on that. The regulations just state that no fencing is permitted.
Through you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Field, the idea is to prevent any impediments to flow or anything that could get picked up and carried and cause blockages downstream from being in that area. Mr. Weiwei, could we have some posts with signage or markers on it that there's wetlands areas? Would that be allowable in a floodway?
Yeah, I think the post would be less of an issue, and I don't think a post constitutes a fence. So in the context of the regulation, the post may be allowable. Again, I'd want to do a little bit more research on that.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Field?
Not this moment. Now the floodway line, I'm trying to see. Is that the FEMA line?
No. The entire site lies within the 100-year floodplain.
Oh, okay.
So let me
Yeah.
let me take a look
okay, I
here.
explained it, yeah.
Yeah. So everything even onto the other side of North Street over here, this is all part of the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
So the floodway itself, which is that additional designated area, is this line right here.
Okay.
So it almost gets down almost halfway through the property. So from this line back to the river, there's additional restrictions on what can and can't be done inside of that zone.
Oh, I see that. Okay. Is there any way we maybe put a split rail fence right on that FEMA regulatory floodway zone? It's just an idea.
I'm not sure what the purpose of the fence would be. I mean, to put a fence up, 5 or 6 feet off the house, I don't think.
It's a little tight.
What are you going to accomplish there? Because you have to have the landing coming out the back here, and we do have some of the AC units up and through here too.
Okay.
Mr. Ritchie, did you have something you wanted to address?
Yes, through you, Mr. Commissioner. My concern is the lawn area. Obviously, it's going to be a residential area. It's going to be fertilized. I just worry about the fertilization runoff into the stream, into Wetland River, just having cascading effects downstream also too. Obviously, like I said, it is a residential area. Chemicals will be used, fertilized, pesticides, herbicides, and seeping into the waterway. Right now, I know where the property is. I know it has been unkept for years, but even though it was mowed, it was never really for pleasure back there. It was mowed just for just keeping the weeds down. That's my only concern for future effects to the waterway.
Yeah, and I think in part the 10-foot mow strip that we've included in there too, that will provide a little bit of a buffer between the lawn area and before it reaches the wetland system. So that'll provide additional mechanisms for uptake of nutrients.
Through you, Mr. Commissioner, I don't think it shows on the map, but how far is it from the 10-foot buffer to the I believe it's the flood line? How big is that lawn area? How many feet from that buffer zone?
I think we were, check my notes, I think we were, yeah, I think we were about 46 feet at the closest point here. So if we're taking 10 feet off of that, that's going to be about 36 feet from this edge of the mow strip to here.
I don't know if this is in our purview, but would any be possible, any plantings, anything down closer to that, the mow zone, no mow zone, that would delineate that and maybe mitigate any runoff from chemicals?
I mean, I could check with Jeff from our office because he's a landscape architect. So what you're asking then is can there be something a little bit more linear placed along that 10-foot mow strip? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that would be my wiring on that.
So, I mean, a consideration might be a low berm, but I think I heard Mr. Weiwei mention that there was proposed plantings. We should actually, I haven't drilled into the plan, but I think we should understand that, Mr. Weiwei. What are the proposed plantings in that strip zone? I think you mentioned there would be some.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Is there a plan for snow removal?
For snow removal? No, well, we have a snow shelf here, and that's identified on the plan here. Snow shelf here, a small area up in here, and then as what's typical with any of these developments for any excessive snows, if the snow shelf areas exceed the capacity, then the snow has to be packed up and moved off site.
Okay.
Mary Rose, just a question clarifying for the record. I did not see the plan documents posted on the website. Am I missing something? I see 0 Cascade, I see 674.
That's my error, Mr. Chair. You need the link that was in on the agenda. I'm sorry. The link on the notes was copied over from last time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the website where it says inlands, wetlands.
Right. Yeah, it leads into a static page, and that static page you need the link to.
Okay. Okay, so given that this is an initial presentation, are there any other questions? Is the agency inclined to want a site walk? If so, we should schedule it. Any thoughts? Mr. Munson?
Yeah, I like sidewalks when we can do them, but I'm not sure in this case what we're going to see. I mean, I think protecting that strip of wetlands is pretty much. I mean, I seem to cover that pretty well. I don't know that one's necessary. If anyone wants to have one, I'd vote for it. I don't think it's particularly necessary.
Any other thoughts? Okay, if there's no interest in the sidewalk, we won't entertain the motion. If there's any additional information, please make sure to get your questions as you review the documents to Mary Rose in advance of the meeting so that she can convey those questions to Mr. Weiwei and Mr. Casino. Mary Rose, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I did, Mr. Chairman. So the questions to the applicant this evening are like a snow plan, a snow removal plan, any proposal for additional buffer or a vegetative hedge, vegetative buffer along the wetland line or along that no-mow strip. And I'm not sure there was any other questions.
Signage,
Sorry,
Mary's, the signage.
signage. Is the agency looking for our typical wetland boundary markers, or are you looking for the educational signage?
Well, obviously you want to mark it as you want it identified as wetlands. And I think also that you can do all kinds of things in a sign. The less activity people have back there is better. Don't take anything out, don't put anything in, kind of thing. Since they're tenants, that may be turning over. So I think as much information is relevant, I think you should put on the sign. If it was only if we're condos, that'd be a different thing. But yeah, I think identifying it as wetlands, and I think most people know that wetlands are saying what you can and can't do.
Mary Rose, question for you. Will the engineer review this documentation in the next week or so before the next meeting?
Right. This was sent over to the city engineer on Friday. So we're hoping to have a review back in time for Mr. Weiwei to respond before the next meeting.
Okay. Anything further, Mary Rose?
Nope. So we want information on snow removal, vegetative buffer, wetland signage, and I imagine the stormwater maintenance plan is embedded in the plans. We'll need that in a document form because that's going to need to be added to the deed at some point.
Yeah, Mary Rose, the operations and maintenance plan, that was part of the stormwater permit. It's part of the appendix.
Okay.
If you need me to split that off, I mean, I could give that to you as a separate document.
Great. Thank you.
Now, with respect to the snow removal plan, is there anything else that you need? Because again, we did identify the snow shelf areas on the landscape plan. So is there something more that you're looking for beyond that?
Sorry, is it the colored landscape plan? Because I'm not noting that. I apologize.
Well, it's on the one that's rendered, but it should also be on the plan, on the uncolored landscape plan.
Okay. So it's the two spots in the southern half of the site is where you're proposing snow will be placed.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, so these have been identified here as snow shelf areas.
Is that sufficient given the area of the site?
Yeah, again, the parking is not that big. It's only the parking area, I think, is about 4,500 square feet.
I mean, to your question, Mr. Weiwei, normally we have a narrative around that talks about what would happen in the event it needs to be taken off site, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so you're looking for a little bit further clarification on it then? Okay.
Normally part of the plan. There's like a write-up around it. Mr. Ritchie, did you have something to add?
Yes, on the plans, I don't see a dumpster area. Is that gonna be somewhere on the property too, or where would that be located? By the
No,
snow
we're
shelf
not
or?
anticipating. Yeah, no, I think we're not anticipating a dumpster. There'll be, basically the trash units will stay in the garages and then they'll be put out on the day of pickup.
Okay,
Okay, so if there's no other discussion points, again, if for some reason, as you're reviewing the documentation, you have questions, please direct them to Mary Rose via email or call the office, and she'll convey them to the applicant. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Weiwei and Mr. Vecino. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to item number F, I believe it is, consideration of the September 4th regular meeting as presented. Do you have a motion to approve those as presented?
So moved.
second,
Motion from Mr. Munson and second from Mr. Ritchie.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Ms.
We also have the sidewalk minutes. I had left them off the notes. I apologize.
Okay, let's take this one up and then we'll do that one. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Abstain.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. And now next, do we have a motion to approve the sidewalk minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion.
I'll
I
second.
second it. Sorry.
We have a second from Mr. Field and the main motion by Mr. Connors. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav, Brian Black,
Abstain.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the vote carries. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to chair's report. I'm sorry, staff report.
Okay. Office continues to be steady and a wee bit busy. We've had several projects that are floating out there that haven't come through yet. I anticipate at least one, if not two, by early November. Announcement went out with the agenda from Taft that the Connecticut Association of Conservation and Inland Wetland Commission, also known as CACUIC, is having its 50th anniversary meeting on Saturday, November 16th. It will be from 8 to 4:30 at the Bristol Event Center. The agency or the city will pay your fee for the event. It's a training event for both wetlands and conservation commissioners. Judge Berger, who was the land use trial judge for a very long time, will be the speaker and on a panel, along with a state representative and some folks from the Connecticut Ag's Experiment Station. If you can get, and the information was sent by Taft, I already put it in the notes, but if you can get us your phone number and email address you want to use for this and which sessions you'd like to attend, they use it to plan the size of the rooms. And Taft will get us registered. It takes the city 5 to 6 weeks to cut a check, and the event's in November. So if you could tell me by the next meeting, that would be very helpful. There's lunch. It's a bit of a ride, but it was a nice venue. Brendan, Ranjit, and I were there last year, along with members of the Conservation Commission and other city staff. Other than that, there's information on more notes, more training in the notes. We're working very hard on the community rating system, which has deadlines on November 1st and November 15th. So we're trying diligently to get that done in a timely manner. Other than that, does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mary Rose. Seeing no questions, moving on to the chair's report. Just as a reminder, the next meeting will be our regular meeting on October 16th, right here on Zoom. Please be sure to let the office know if you're unable to attend. Thanks very much for all the deliberation this evening and your continued volunteer time. At this time, I'd like to open up for a motion to adjourn.
Made the motion.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion
Who
been
seconded?
seconded by
Everyone.
I know.
Buddy has it.
Okay, I'll take it. I second it.
And Lisa, roll call vote.
Dan Vedeker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You
Good
too.
night, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Have a good night. Blessing, we're all set.
Mary Rose